is all right. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Salt Lake City Human Rights Commission on Tuesday, September 5th at almost right at 5:30 p.m. So let's do a roll call. What I'll do is I'll introduce myself and then we just go kind of clockwise around the room and then go all line. So my name is Jason Russell. I'm the chair and I'm representing District 1.
Jen Mayer Glenn, I represent District 5.
My name is Ali Abdulrahman. I am from Sudan, West and Darfur.
My name is Michelle Mooney, Equity Manager, Salt Lake City Mayor's Office.
Maria Romero, Executive Assistant to Chief Equity Officer.
My name is Kamal Ibrahim from Sudan. I represent the Salt Lake community in Salt Lake.
My name is Afrod Abdelkarim from Sudan Southwest.
Nancy Cantor, I'm an observer for the Living Voters.
Okay, now let's go online. Commissioner Terry,
Commissioner Will Terry representing District 4.
Commissioner Stoll,
Esther Stoll representing District 2.
And then we have Commissioner Harmeal.
we have Commissioner.
Commissioner Harmeal online as well.
Okay, and then we've got Commissioner Armia.
Hello, Olivia Harmia, District 3.
Okay, that is 5 out of 8 of our city board members, so I'm going to probably have huge quorum. So next item on the agenda is to approve and adopt the minutes. As I believe the only minutes we have had from August would have been our retreat, so I don't believe we have minutes for that.
Did we not have an August meeting?
Did we have an August meeting? Or did
I thought we
our
had.
retreat in August?
No, there was not. This was-
Yeah, there was an August meeting because we introduced you at that meeting, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
so yes, I sent the minutes out.
My bad, and did anybody have an opportunity to review the minutes? Anybody want to make a motion to adopt the minutes or to table the minutes?
I move that we adopt the minutes. August.
Okay. We've got a motion from Commissioner Stoll to adopt the August minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Terry has seconded it. Say without objection 3 times. If there's an objection, object, or say you should abstain. So without objection, without objection. And the rule that adopting the minutes passes unanimously. All right, that takes us on to public comment. I believe, is it Nancy? Is that correct? You're a
Yes.
member of the public here. Did you have anything you wish to say?
No, I'm just here observing for the terms of letting them know what's going on with the commission.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody online from the public that wishes to make a comment?
No, we only have in person.
Okay, and that'll take us to item 4 on the agenda, which is the presentation of people who are here in the room. So I will let you guys take over. We have you on the agenda for 15 to 20 minutes, but I have been informed by staff that we have rushed our agenda today a bit, so.
No, the time was good. We just have to end on time.
All right.
That's it.
So you've got 15 to 20 minutes and please try to not go over. So I don't know who wants to take over.
Yeah, I'll start. My name is Ali, and as I mentioned, I'm from Sudan, specifically from Western Darfur. And as you guys know, there's a war going on in Sudan, all over Sudan. But there's some regions are very affected more than other regions, especially like Darfur region, which is on the western part of Sudan. And that region, it's been in a war for a very long time. Since 2003, the war broke down in Sudan, especially in Darfur. Then in 2020 or 2019, I believe it's kind of stopped a little bit. Then again, this year in 2023, and on April 15, where the big war has broke down in Sudan between the two armies, and will let all civilians flee their homes and go to like for secure area and stuff like that. So as we from Darfur region, specifically in Western Darfur, the city of Genena, it's been a tragic for the last couple of months from April 15 until now. So in June 15, the city has been attacked by militia and they killed thousands of people. They injured thousands of people. They destroyed all the properties. They stole everything what the people have there. And they forced some people to leave the city and go to the neighboring country, which is the Republic of Chad. And it was not really far from the city, but people have to walk for at least 35 kilometers or something like that. I think about 20 miles or something like that. They have to walk on foot, to arrive to the secure borders of Chad. So now people live there in the border and without a shelter, without a food, and with the weather, it's kind of like in the fall right now. It's raining everywhere, water, on the ground, and which has also caused a lot of disease, because of the thousands, like at least what they heard of over 300,000 people they flee their home into Chad. And they don't have any shelters, they don't have any food, and with that, the situation created a lot of disease, and people just dying because of the lack of medication, and some people also have died because they got injured, they got wounded, while they were crossing the border to Chad. And as I mentioned, everything like us here also, we have our family members, all of them back there. Some of us, they don't even know where their parents are. They don't even know where the family members are. Some of them are dead, and some of them are just missing, And also we have some other people that they took them as a hostage. These militia took some other people as a hostage and asking people for money. You pay us this, then we release these people. If you don't pay us, we're not going to release them. And this is all happened to us in Darfur region. And we specifically from Darfur, we lost a lot of our family members. And also we are missing a lot of our family members. We don't really know where they are. Either they're dead or alive, we don't really know because of the situation there. So there's no network. The network has been cut off, there's no service at all, no phone service, everything is being cut off. And it's really even hard to communicate with the people back there. So emotionally, this is what affects us here, in Salt Lake City, as people from Sudan, specifically Darfur region. And we don't really know whether our parents or our family members are alive or dead and what their situation is. And it's just really hard emotionally, when you focus about you missing someone and you don't really know if they're alive or dead, and you don't know if they're okay or not okay. It's just a very tough situation. And this has become a very big issue for us, as a community here in Salt Lake City. And just gonna stop there, and maybe I'll let my friends finish whatever, I need to say.
Just gonna add to that. My name is Kamal. I also represent Masali community from Sudan. Just gonna read it. Masali region, West Darfur, and West Darfur, Al Geneina, and several districts were exposed to mass destruction. Thousands of civilians were killed, and other 1,000 were displaced by militias and rapid group forces. Leaders of Masalit community tribe are systematically targeted and killed based on their identity, we as Masali tribe, we being persecuted simply for being African indigenous tribes in the region. Chad has been generously welcoming Sudanese refugees, but Chad itself is a low-income crisis-affected country. Despite their urgent needs to supply Sudanese refugees in Chad arriving in Chad, international donors have fallen short of funding the human right response in the country. We as Masalik community living in Utah and Salt Lake, we generally ask in the human right groups to help our people back home.
My name is Arbab Abdul Karim. We are guys the same family. Just was the region Darfur. I guess the same message. We need help, guys. It's very hard. People doesn't have food, doesn't have blanket, doesn't have clothes, doesn't have shoes. All people like say my brother Ali, like 100,000 people. It doesn't anything happen. We need help. Just send message. Thank you guys. Director for Masalik community, Vice Secretary Office. Thank you guys.
I would just like to say thank you for coming here and talking to us and telling us about this. I know that this is hard. And that I'm sure, suffering daily because of this. So I want to say thank you for trusting in us and in this space to come here and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
A few months ago, we had started talking about trying to put together a comprehensive list of resources for refugees and Americans. I'm not sure how far along that has gotten, but if we have a list or something like that we can share with you, it wouldn't be comprehensive, but definitely organizations that exist in Salt Lake City that specifically help people, especially in conflict zones for refugees. Shall we, do we have any update on that?
On the guide,
Yes.
not at this moment. I'm prepared with that, so I would have to touch base with Rob second.
So could you guys tell us if you've been in communication with any local based organizations, international rescue leagues, something like that? Just, yeah, whoever, I was wondering if you have any local contacts yet, because those organizations have national, international ties where in a bigger capacity to be able to help you guys out. I'm just kind of brainstorming here, trying to think what's in our capability to help you. It might be facilitated, we get in touch with people who have the resources to help you.
We have not actually. We have not actually. We didn't know about that at all. So yeah, it's just our first step, just to talk to you about the crisis.
We did protest about a month ago.
So, and our people, they really need help. Some people they don't even have clothes. Our communities, they have to participate whatever clothes they have. Enough here, put them in a box, then we send them, we ship them to them because people they came out of their homes without enough. They own whatever they have. They wear it, that's it. And it's been a very big crisis for people. Suffering like that, where they don't even have enough clothes to wear, or maybe there's just being with one clothes for a couple of months. So that's really hard. And plus the food also, where people they can, there's no food at all. And it's like thousands of people. It's a big number.
Do you know, I guess I have a follow-up question, is the UN High Commission for Refugees involved in Chad at all, helping folks that are coming across the border? Is there any international groups like UN helping at all?
Not yet, according to what I heard, from people back there. The UN Commission is supposed to come and help these people, but now mostly the help they get it from the locals there, the locals trying to bring whatever they have, food and give it to them, shelter, blankets, stuff like that, So it's a very big number, and up to now, yes, the Republic of Chad countries, it's been doing great helping these refugees, and especially the last, refugees that were fleeing into their country, they just try to help them whenever they can, because the UN Commissioner, I don't know, for some reason, up to now, there's no, any help from them. But what help they get now is just from the people around the world, from Sudan, they're just trying to help, whatever they have, like clothes or something like that, food, and stuff like that. But
The state of Utah does have a refugee services office.
state of Utah. Okay.
Yeah, and they're generally helping refugees that are arriving here in Utah, and just like the International Rescue Committee
Right.
and Catholic Community Services. But I mean, one thing that you might wanna try to do is reach out to them, because being part of the state government, they can bring it more to the attention of like the governor and also the congressional delegation, because really what the United States would wanna do is to push the UN to recognize these folks as refugees, and then they can get help. And so I don't know if you have community members in other states as well, but that's really one effort. It sounds like you're trying to raise awareness of this situation. And so going to like the state and trying to reach out to the congressional delegation for Utah, and then your fellow community members in other states reaching out to their congressional delegations, because it really has to raise it to the level of the US and other countries will push the UN to provide support to those refugees coming over from Sudan into Chad.
Okay.
So those are some
That's
resources
resources, okay.
that are, it's very difficult, obviously, because there's a very slow, like bureaucratic process that doesn't help
Right.
people today. And so,
And that leads me to think about the LDS humanitarian services.
yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And, maybe that's something we can do is to either make a direct connection with them, so you can talk to them. So what they do is they mobilize food and food across the world.
That's cool.
And there are many things they can do. I don't know how they decide where they go, but I do think that they would entertain, that they would want to hear from you, and if anyone has the capacity to be able to help, they would be an organization, I think, that could do that.
Okay.
And so that would be something to help just relieve some of the needs, immediate needs.
Okay.
But then I agree with Pam that in the long run, we need to do some writing letters to maybe collectively to some of the higher level leaders at the national, state and national level.
Okay.
Yes, and if you can do that across multiple states, that would help.
The humanitarian center is a great source to get immediate. They have there's so much stuff, and so many networks to send things, and you're talking about clothing and food and things like that, medical supplies.
My understanding is they don't provide aid in conflict zones, but it sounds like that from the description you've given, the militia is formally, the John Committee is not pursuing across the border and not closing the border like they did in 2003. So Chad might be considered the safe zone for some of the.
They may already have pipeline to Chad, relationships with Chad.
I did read that France is trying to get an EU mission under the umbrella of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees into Chad. That's kind of, Chad is what they're colony, so they kind of have a vested interest. So I believe I read 2 weeks ago, that France is pushing to try to get admission into Chad. So always hope the wheels are moving slowly, but they're trying to get resources on the ground there.
I wonder if we could, I'm not sure how, it's a typical kind of thing that the commission does, but I guess I'm wondering if we can maybe send a letter to Juan Becerra at LDS Humanitarian Services, or if he's their, the public relations, connecting to the community, and seeing if we can get there a connection or something like that.
Sounds like an excellent idea.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner,
I'm
would you like to draft that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm gonna say that.
Yes, if you draft it, I can get it on a formal like template, like on behalf of the commission.
Commissioners online, do you wish to speak?
I will start. First of all, I just want to say thank you to you all for coming in and sharing your perspective on what's happening in your home. I'm not too far away from you. I'm from Nigeria, so I can absolutely understand like the difficulties, and I do commend you for reaching out to this body and just trying to get the support that you need. And Michelle, I'm hoping that I'm hearing a lot of organizations being mentioned. And I know it's easy to just give out information, but I hope we can put it together and package it in a way that will be more useful to them. And I know you still have a lot of work to do, and this could just be one of your stops. But I do want to thank you for all coming here and sharing that. I think oftentimes we are so focused on our happenings around us that we don't really get a glimpse of what's happening in someone else's life and world. So I personally appreciate you coming and sharing the difficulties that you're facing in your country. But one of the things that I picked out, I know it's also hard for us to hear online too, but one of the things that I picked up on was just, I can hear some resources being given, and I just hope that we can gather those and share it with them, and maybe follow up and see what we could do on our end. I heard something about a letter being written to send somewhere. I'd love to hear more about that and see how we can help with putting that together. But thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
So, as I said before, we were trying to collect refugee and new American resources in one place. We're not very far along with that yet, and this is kind of a time-sensitive emergency. Let's see if we can get together half a dozen or so of the most relevant ones. Put our heads together and we're all informed on the state level stuff. Commissioner Glenn with the churches. So.
And we can also add in, as Esther suggested, like the names of the different organizations with, phone numbers and emails, as well as we can put in the names and the contact information for like congressional delegations, if you have it all in one place. And then you can work with your community members to do some advocacy. That's what we can sort of do, is help pull that together so that you don't have to track it down as much, and I'm happy to work on that piece of it.
On the same way, that's where I was going to.
So I'm happy to work on that part of it, is we're pulling together some of the resources that we mentioned, and then I assume Michelle has your contact information and could send it out to you via email. Let's pull that together. Okay.
If you'll give us a few days, we'll collaborate and we'll get something, information together and we'll get it to you. Sounds good. It's not much, but it's at least pointing in the right direction.
Right.
We're ready now to submit a letter to the White House. We did kind of organize like a demonstration, protest in front of the White House about a month ago. We submitted that letter.
Oh, that's great.
But like, we haven't heard anything.
Yeah, I think, you may not hear back, but I think as much as you can continue to apply kind of pressure and raise awareness coming to groups like this, going to other city council or community council meetings or other groups that are interested in human rights, and encouraging your community members in other states. I mean, ultimately, you know, as Esther said, we get so wrapped up in our immediate context that we lose sight of what's happening in the rest of the world, and so it's really important that, you know, you bringing this to our attention. Thank you so much. Really.
Thanks for your help.
We are hosting a lunch and award ceremony for Human Rights Day in December. So make sure we get invitations out to you. There'll be quite a few people there that this is their wheelhouse. This is where we work. This is the subject they work on. You might be able to network with some of them and get more connections there.
Thank you, and I have, Kamal, I have your information, so I'll email that, so I will get this to you.
Okay.
Is end of week a good deadline for me to follow up with? Okay.
So we'll coordinate one. Via email. Sounds good. Is there anything else you wish to, was a statement or anything you wish to ask of us?
That's your thing.
So yeah, I really appreciate the support, guys. Yeah, I just wanted to like put it out there for you.
So can I ask a question? How did you know to come to the Human Rights Commission? Like, how did you end up here today? I'm really fascinated by that.
You were her, yeah.
Yeah, we connected at the World Refugee Day event at the
Yeah.
Sports and Unity Center. So next week, if you, you might have heard, but the state and the county collaboration and the city, we're having welcoming week next week. So that's catered to our refugee communities, and there's gonna be a bunch of different events. And I could probably, we have a week calendar for that.
Yeah, we do have an external invitation, so we can definitely,
Send an invitation over to you. There'll be a lot of different elected officials as the kind of, and their teams, of course, like supporting these different events. So I can get that on your radar too, that's happening the whole next week.
Keep talking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you as a closing
Thank you.
remarks. Thank you so much for, listening to our stories. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Wait, before you all leave, Jason, I've been texting Michelle on this, but the Human Rights Commission is always looking for voices that represent communities and districts that aren't usually heard. So feel free to connect even more with Michelle to see if this would be a fit for one of you, because we do need those voices and we do need to make sure that the communities are being served in Salt Lake City. And like I said, if you're not out here talking about the issues that are of concern to you, a lot of people will know about it. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. So much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, so that brings us to item 5 on our agenda. This is a strategy planning session. This is basically trying to set up future goals of the commission, springboarding off of the retreat where we discussed kind of the direction that on the new we're talking about taking more. The impression I got was it would be more hands-on, more active out in the community rather than passive, letting the city government come to us and give us presentations. So since I am gone in December, I will largely remove myself from this conversation and let you guys take it. So.
Okay, so I'll just help kind of guide the discussion. So some of the things that we need to probably discuss in this meeting, because the last 2 meetings are in the year report of Human Rights Day, is at the retreat, I propose, so by ordinance, the commission only needs to meet at least minimum quarterly. So with me seeing just how busy everyone is on this commission, and I commend you all, I'm just as busy as you all are. I suggested not even going down to the quarterly, but is there some substance to our meetings that we need to meet every month besides the July and December, or do we think, I know Jason had proposed like in every other month? What are you all feeling about that? Cause I do need to put out an annual notice for the calendar, soon. So if we're thinking, and why that kind of came up is when Councilmember Wharton came and presented, he had mentioned that the past, and maybe Commissioner Mayor Glenn, you can speak on this too, that they had community dialogues. And they were in the community, I'm not sure if that was before or after your time.
That was my idea.
Yeah, so they thought it was great, and commissioners, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was something that for newer commissioners that hasn't been seen before, so if we wanna do that, maybe the on the off months that we're not having meetings, we're in the community, we're doing focus groups, we're doing just something more of substance than sitting, in the city county room.
Yeah.
Or we can have all the meetings and then still do this, but I'm just trying to be realistic with everyone's schedules, what is more manageable. So I'll open it up there for discussion for online and in person, just kind of where are we thinking in terms of that part? Like meetings and community sessions.
If I can interject, I believe that Commissioner Terry took some pretty extensive notes, so.
Did we lose him? Is he still on?
Yeah, and Commissioner Terry sent it to you all via email, so I'll go down the list of notes as well, but let's start there, so it's kind of guided, so it's not different.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm hopping between two things right now, so I just remembered. So, sorry about that.
I'll just like, I mean, and I apologize for not being at the retreat. It was, and I was with the UMP staff at Ashland Park, is where we were camping. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that the purpose of those dialogues that we did at the time were pretty specific. We were trying to hear from the community, what they were experiencing in terms of discrimination. And then we wrote a report about that, which exists somewhere. Maybe we should find it and bring it to you all to read it. But, so that had a very specific purpose.
I think the dialogue on democracy, that's the one that Councilmember Wharton said, community dialogues that are themed around different diverse identities, and they had about 4 per year. But there were also the discrimination ones for open houses, that's what he called kind of that.
Okay. Okay, the ones that I know about that, I don't want to correct him. But, and so there were multiple things that we were doing, but it was to be able to collect data about, what the community was experiencing. And that was then used to, kind of justify the ordinance, just anti-discrimination ordinance that was passed eventually with Salt Lake City. But I guess in terms of like this commission and what is happening now, I mean, there's so many, I think, different approaches that we could take. From, if there's like a goal that we want to get to that, that's very specific, that's one thing, to start bringing community together around conversations specific to a goal. I also, and this is my personal perspective, and I guess my experiential perspective, is that the process sometimes is the product, meaning that if we were to maybe have dialogues or bringing different groups of people together that don't typically hear from each other in a conversation, and it doesn't necessarily need to have a specific outcome, right? The outcome is whatever happens in that space, but what you're doing is giving people the opportunity to hear from people who may be thinking differently. I guess the drawback for Salt Lake City is that most of us in Salt Lake City, many of us are kind of similar in thought, let's say.
Yeah.
And it's actually, you know, other areas, more rural areas or other places where, you know, where people are coming into conflict. But I think that there's value in just putting that energy out there, the kind of conversation energy into the world. Those are my initial thoughts.
I like the idea of meeting, you know, and in every other month or quarterly or, you know, and then in the intermeeting months, being out in the community. And, you know, I think that, you know, if we don't have a specific, it'd be nice to have sort of a theme for the conversations, for the dialogues, or the listening sessions. But not necessarily preconceived outcome. I like what you're saying, Jennifer, about, you know, that it can be an end within itself. But one thing I might hope too, especially with newer members, where we have several years ahead of us, is that it might also give us like a focal issue. And then even, I mean, I guess one thing I imagine is that there are many people living in Salt Lake City that have no idea that there is a Human Rights Commission. And that they don't often engage in conversation around human rights. What does that look like? What are human rights? What kind of concerns do they have with regard to either human rights for themselves or other members of the community? And maybe getting people to engage in that kind of conversation would identify some issues and also some action plans for us. Because I would love to see the action come out of kind of these community dialogues, rather than, you know, us saying, these are the things we should work on, and, you know,
And
it's
8 people do
right,
work.
right, and separated from what the community has identified. Obviously, we know there's some larger themes in the community. There may be things that would arise that we aren't aware of, and that would be my hope, even though I agree with what you're saying, is that in general, the people who might turn out are gonna be, you know, more progressive individuals, but we might hear things, issues that how they framed it, that we weren't necessarily aware of or weren't touching on our experience, so I like that idea a lot.
And I'll just offer in terms of resources for such a thing. I actually just met last week with the executive director of the Utah Humanities Council, and also the executive director of Living Room Conversations. Living Room Conversations is intended, it's all open source information, you know, like it's all open source facilitation guides. And it's intended for any group of people to sit down together in a dialogue around specific topics. So those tools exist both in terms of like the kinds of agreement, it just lays it out for you. And I've done it several times. We actually had the Utah Coalition of La Raza, we had our big dinner, and we actually did this at the end of the dinner. Were you there?
Yeah, I was there,
Yeah. So that's exactly what a living room conversation is.
Is that a local organization?
The executive director does live here. Yeah, it was started by Joan, can't remember her last name. I think she was on the East Coast somewhere, but the current executive director lives in Utah County. So, and I know we were actually saying to each other, what are we gonna do together? So I think that there could be some resources there and some facilitation support if people were interested in that. And they would help to tailor some of this to what it is that we want or what we think would be. I suggest you go to livingroomconversations.org and check it out. Check out some of the topics and the that are already created, just so that we don't have to do that work. But I agree, like putting a stamp of Human Rights Commission on, like Salt Lake City Human Rights Commission is sponsoring this event, kind of thing, I think could, and then yes, if we want to capture data, then that's something that we can do also.
recommend that you might take on something involving homelessness. This very next softball, that's a big topic. I've seen a lot of rhetoric about the issue without a human rights angle being addressed with it. I've seen
Yeah,
people running for office talk about the forced relocation of people.
yes,
And,
yes,
which is a human rights violation and one definition of genocide. But for what's essentially fractions.
yeah,
You can't arrest people for infractions, or you can't jail people for infractions, and you can't force relocate people against their will. And that conversation's not happening, so there's kind of a void there, so there's one that is something that I recommend, but it is a huge topic, but there is space there for the human rights stuff.
I really,
So going back to the conversation, I'm sorry, go ahead, Terry. Commissioner Terry.
I really share the sentiments with Commissioner Wessel about doing things within the community. I think that there is a gap there as far as representation from a specific community, like a voice within themselves. And I think we could kind of bridge that gap a little bit. I know we talked about it at the retreat. I love the idea as far as topics goes, homelessness as one, where people kind of experiencing homelessness and the things associated. So I just wanted to echo that.
Okay, Esther, would you have to contribute?
I was just gonna circle us back to the discussion topic, which was whether or not we wish to switch from monthly to quarterly. I don't know if that was necessarily answered. I know we're still discussing, so I just want to make sure that we are at least dealing with the particular thing that we want to change. And then we can just work on the strategy on how to make that happen. This is something I'm like learning this week, or so I'm trying to apply it to everywhere that I am, which is set the goal. And then let's talk about the strategy, and then let's talk about the tactics that we're going to use to to get to our goal. So is our goal to change our monthly meetings to quarterly? And then secondly, with those changes, do we incorporate the forums and the different things that we want to do? And someone mentioned visiting someone, a different group to see what they're doing and kind of piggyback from that. And maybe that could be like the 1 month that we don't meet, we start off with visiting those different groups and then bringing it back to the commission to kind of see how we can form what we want to do moving forward.
So if I recall from the retreat, as we started parsing how it would work out, it was rather than a quarterly meeting, it would be every other month you'd meet, and the month in between would be the holding community event. That covers 8 months. Then you've got the 2 months of summer off. There's 10 months, and then you have December when Human Rights Day takes place. That's the 11th month. So you really would end up, if you did it every other month, with one outstanding month. Does that make sense?
Well, it's just by ordinance, it's just quarterly meeting. So whatever that looks like, if that is every other month, right now I give you all July off and December, because like technically December isn't really off because you have Human Rights Day. So I'm open to working with you all and what you all think this commission needs. I'm going based off, and Commissioner Merrick Glenn, I think your experience is vital here. I think even having Councilmember Wharton it felt like you all were more hands-on. So since I've been in this role and since I've seen my predecessor in this role and I trained with her, it just seems very much like just meeting after meeting, subcommittee meeting, general meeting, but then not too much action. And CEDAW will be more action, I can tell you that for sure. Damien and I are working on that, and that will have focus groups. That's why we are looking to have a task force for CEDAW. and we want community members involved with that, and it'll still have a tie to Human Rights Commission, and you all can take part in that, but that's gonna be a whole beast of its own to uplift and implement and make sure it's happening accordingly, especially for that first year. So it doesn't need to be like on calendar, every month is something. Like if you all need more time, I understand, there's 2 commissioners not here today due to travel, and I wanna be mindful of what you all have going on in your lives, your other involvement. I just wanna see what's best for the commission, because we do have to create that annual notice of when we're meeting.
I think, kind of piggybacking what Commissioner Stoll was saying, that, you know, like having an actual plan. So if we do choose to do it quarterly or bi-monthly or whatever it is, I think that what will be really important, because it's so easy to then just let in those intervening months and kind of, especially when we don't have the community dialogues kind of set up yet, is that we would have to take on kind of assignments, whether it's researching the living room conversations you mentioned, or identifying locations. I think what Commissioner Terry was talking about, how we said, I remember in the retreat, that we might identify locations that we go to, so that for these community conversations, that we're going to where people are, rather than solely asking them to come to us. So, you know, whether, I just think that if we do move to this less frequent, that we actually make sure we have clear sense of what's happening in those intervening months, so that if we're communicating via email, if we're doing research, or connecting with potential partners, or identifying locations, that we're very clear on what that is, because then I think, you know, we've all seen it happen where you just sort of wait for the next meeting and nothing's happened in the interim. So I think that's the tricky piece, is making that commitment to do the work, because it may not be happening like in this room.
I'll also just throw it out on the table that one of the other things that we were doing that was really hands-on was looking at current ordinances and kind of through a lens of equity or human rights.
Yeah.
And then also paying attention to new ordinances that were coming through the pipeline. And really, there were a couple of those that we put a stop to, which was nice. I don't think, I guess maybe it's a question for everyone. It seems like times are different now, just in terms of like, who are the city council people currently, and that may not be as much of an issue as it once was. But I think there might be a way to sort of have a clearinghouse for city ordinances to just check them. I mean, there are likely some pretty old ordinances out there that if used could be not so much human rights-esque.
So Councilmember Ward recommended that the transmittal list when new ordinances are being transmitted from the mayor's office to the city council. I thought there was pretty much a universal approval.
Oh, good. There we go.
Plan. So that's for new ordinances. As far as digging into the guts of city code.
And it could be that, you know, it's, I mean, it feels completely overwhelming when you think about all the current ordinances that exist, right?
Yeah.
But if it was on some kind of rotating basis, to just take it and maybe a follow, because I'm sure there's something on rotating basis already with current ordinances. For city council to maybe look at them again.
Right.
Let's find that out.
I suspect there might be some old city code that's still using the language of redlining.
Yeah, and it would be nice to get rid of all of that. Especially things that are in practice. I mean, I know redlining is not a practice, so I don't mean that, but at least not in its original form. It exists in a different form now.
You got a giant freeway and railroad tracks down my neighborhood, off for the rest of the city.
Right. Yeah,
There's a hand online.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Jaramillo.
Hi, thank you so much. Hey, I have to excuse myself from the meeting, but I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on how we meet. I think it'd be beneficial if once we set a rhythm of what we are going to be doing on a quarterly basis, we move to that. Until then, we should stick to monthly meetings. And that is all.
Okay, I believe that the proposal that Michelle's giving us is that, yeah, by the end of the year, when they put the schedule out for next year, you guys have to make a decision, so.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic, yeah.
So it's not a vote that's gonna take place today, these are the ideas on the table, and you guys will decide next year what you wanna meet, because we're committed to the timeline that was adopted last year.
When do you need the?
So when annual notice goes out, I would have to put it by January. And that it's not difficult to change, it's just the once it's out to the public.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would like to see where we can go from here. And another thing, before you leave, Commissioner, I know you have to, with the January meeting, our first one is set on January 2nd, and I do know last year, as much as, like, it still conflicts with people's travel plans, so with our first meeting and this building having construction, would you all be in favor of meeting on January 9th, the second week of January? Because I just know last year, as much as I got a commitment, that meeting was and we have to vote on things in that meeting, the chair and vice chair. I'd rather set you all up for success and I'm being realistic. So will January 9th work for those continuing on?
Yes.
I believe that's a substantive issue, the changing schedule doesn't want to hold a vote, is that correct?
Sorry, what was that saying?
So you're changing the schedule, I believe that's substantive, so we have to hold a vote. Is that correct?
Yeah, technically, I guess because November meeting, it landed on election day, so you're able to just change it,
So let's just to be safe, let's call ourselves into voting procedures.
Although, can I just, we only have the meeting scheduled out through December 10th, right?
Yes, I'm talking for next year, I'm just bringing it up.
And that's what I'm saying, is do we have to, I guess we have to just,
You know, schedule, you have to get your vote on it.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
scheduled yet, we have to, that's my question.
Yeah, I guess because it's an ordinance that, well,
Is it in order
I don't
to meet
think
the
it
first
is.
I
Tuesday?
think it would be when you announce the schedule, but just to be safe, let's have you guys vote
Yeah.
now, and
You
you'll
can
have that in your back pocket to say that you got the approval to.
okay, let's do it before, Commissioner.
Do you want a motion?
So I'll call us voting, we're calling ourselves into voting procedures, which means we have a more formalized structure. So entertain a motion that you modify the existing schedule to have the first meeting of 2024 be on January 9th, the second week of the month. So I'll entertain that motion, somebody want to make it?
So moved.
All right, so notice that Pamela Silverman, Commissioner at Large, has made that motion. Does somebody wish to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, does anybody wish to speak for or against this motion? Okay, not recognizing anybody who wishes to speak for or against, we will not have any speakers. So that'll take us into voting procedures. We're in a hybrid format right now, so I will do a roll call vote around the table and then we will go online. So Jason Wessel, I abstain because I will not be there.
Oh, Pamela Sullivan, in favor.
Jenny Mirabla in favor.
Okay, so it takes us online. Commissioner Stoll, how do you vote?
In favor.
Okay, Commissioner Terry?
I think we might just have to go back to.
Okay, Commissioner Hermia?
In favor?
Okay, so even without Commissioner Terry's vote, I'm going to rule that passes with, well, 2 abstentions and 4 in favor.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, I'll keep you updated.
So that takes us
Bye-bye.
out of voting procedures. That takes us out of voting procedures, so we're back to informal debate.
So I guess I did hear at the retreat, I know that quarterly might be tough in terms of, I don't think we have to move, because we meet monthly, maybe we can start slow with the every other month and see how that works. I mean, clearly, we would still have to, once the schedule is published, for the most part, we'll stick with it. However, in those off months, I will be more proactive in making sure that what I felt, I guess, I got from Councilmember Warren and inspired by is that they all kind of did like what you said, like a rotational, like in terms of the workload they had. Like maybe, okay, if it's community dialogue, maybe 2 commissioners take lead on this, the rest come and support, and then the next month it's fun. You know, everybody had a role in duty. That's what I felt so inspired by, and I was like, oh, that works, because it's not all falling on the chair or vice chair, or maybe one commissioner that's more passionate, or that's their area of expertise. It looked like it was very much a group collective. So yes, it might be hard, like I can't see, well, maybe, I don't know, of the first community session in February, or even seeing where we can partner more. The mayor's office already does community sessions for different months. So for example, we have our Hispanic Heritage session, Proclamation Plus event is what they call it, but they're gonna move it to be called, I believe, community sessions now. That's something maybe the Human Rights Commission can, getting our name out there more, having people hear Human Rights Commission more, so that when they come and join this commission or come and visit, there's more of that understanding. I just wanna get a feel for, I guess, what do we want meetings to look like next year that's at everyone's capacity?
One thing I think would be really helpful, especially if we are gonna go to every other month or alternate quarterly to sort of keep things moving forward, is I would like to see kind of at the end of the meeting, kind of a summary of action items and who sort of doing what. So even like today, we now have 2, right? Commissioner Meyer Friend's gonna work on the letter for the LDS Church. I'm gonna work on the resource list for, refugee serving organizations. So I think that would be really helpful, because then in that intervening month, people know what they said they would do, and then when we come back following, that month, we say, okay, did you write the letter? Did you, if it wasn't followed up in between. So I find that really helpful if you could have sort of a standing practice of having like clear action items, and that goes back to what you were just saying about, everyone taking a piece of it, not just having it all fall in the chair, the vice chair.
And I do like that, I do take my own notes, and I will be one to admit, I do have to be better with those follow-up items. So I will work with Maria. I know sometimes I do get, depending when she's able to get the minutes, but for sure, like today, I took to-do items. So at least I can get you all that. I think my OCD kicks in and I'm like, I need everything at once, so that I'm not bombarding you with multiple emails. I just know that you all have a lot of emails, but I will start doing that, at least with the to-do items, if we don't get the minutes out. But the video is usually posted, so maybe I can put a link to the video and then each commissioner's to-do items. So I hear you on that. I wrote that down.
So I can make a recommendation, if you're having your first meeting of next year, January 9th, you could do your first community outreach session in February for Martin Luther King Day. It's a highly publicizable event, day of service. You
That's
can
in
start with-
January.
Yeah,
January,
It is
okay.
in January.
But February is not just
February is
one
not-
summer.
That's Black History Month is
It's still appropriate to.
It's still, yeah, I feel like it would still be,
Martin.
yes.
So the city does something for Martin Luther King Day, which you could have a presence there and use that to springboard into your own event day.
I wonder, and this is just an idea throwing out there, in terms of the calendar.
Yes.
If we do every other month or quarterly, whichever people decide on, as a formal meeting, right? And then we commit to still putting in once a month energy.
Yes,
And we decide what it is that happens during, so if we don't get it figured out in the January meeting, let's say, then that's what happens in the next informal meeting,
Right, right.
until we have a plan.
Yes, so I don't feel like it'll be like we're off, I do not see it like that, so, even if we, so these are clearly the open public meetings to the general public, where, so we can have, we just have to caution some things, right, because there is OPMA guidelines
Right.
of what we're meeting about, and especially when we do have quorum, what does that look like? So we would have to be careful, like, we can't have things like the retreat, but we can't talk too much business, basically.
Right.
So we have to make sure, and I can meet with our attorneys on that, I'm sure they'll help me figure out, hey, if we go to this bi-monthly public meeting in the interim, what would be allowed? I just wanna make sure I understand that, especially if you do have all of you guys are meeting, and it's a check-in, but then we're trying to,
Well, it seems like that if we do the discussion and the, and make a proposal on the interim,
yeah,
then we bring that proposal here and actually vote on it in
Okay.
a public meeting.
Yeah, so
Okay, perfect.
my understanding would be that if you, at a public meeting, you would adopt a plan of action,
okay.
the off month would then be like work session.
Work session.
You're allowed,
Yes.
you're allowed to meet and not have a public notice and discuss something that you agreed to with the work on. But you couldn't take up any new business at that meeting.
I do like that word, work session.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if the work session had to be a public notice meeting, just not.
Not if you have decided that you're going to focus on the goal, like if you're doing like
Like logistics for the community dialogue.
yeah,
Yes.
you held the vote and you made the public announcement at the public meeting. So everything else is just board product happening outside of the public view. But if you have a quorum and you talk about any other business, you're violating the public meetings act.
Yeah, which technically Human Rights Day, that all happens outside, because it's planning as we go, but I give updates here in this meeting, so the public still knows about it and things like that. And we're not voting on anything when we're planning, we're literally just planning the event and making sure the celebration is a success. So I think if you all are okay with it, I'll make the calendar and I'll present it probably at our final meeting, just so you all see the dates of what we're looking at. Because I still wanna give you those 2 months truly off, well, I guess July, that's our month really off. Because December will always have Human Rights Day, but I'll give you a glimpse of what that looks like, and we'll have work sessions in between until there's a plan. I think that kind of captures everybody's thoughts, because I know Commissioner Harmeo we don't wanna just have like, we want to make sure we're working, right? So I know a community dialogue will come right away. But hopefully, once we meet in January, we have a good boost of energy of what we can. And what goals do you all think? So with the subcommittees we have right now, I know that we said, these are standard subcommittees, but they don't always have to be, I guess, ongoing at once. What do you all think is a priority? Or what priorities do you all wanna focus on? What passion is there? Because I know this looked different for commissioners in the past, like there was a commissioner very excited about gentrification, and not to say that subcommittee goes away, but on these updates, just so we make sure that they're not just listed here on the agenda and we're not discussing it. I know Commissioner Wessel had suggested maybe a point person, kind of like with homelessness, there's a point person that does that. There can be a point person to work with the Thriving in Place team on gentrification. But where do we need actual subcommittee meetings? Does that make sense? Because I want to make sure the calendar is pretty accurate to what we have.
And with the caveat that racial equity, policing, and CDOT are in city code, the human rights commission has to have a presence there.
So
Those are not negotiable, we have to have those.
And do we have someone from, a commissioner attending the racial equity?
Just be with it.
Okay.
And that will change once Commissioner Russell's off the commission, because we need an active agency.
And what about the CDOT, who's the representative for that?
CDOT, we have the chair and vice chair and Commissioner Harmeo, so they're on CDOT, but right now, the way CDOT's ordinance is like Damien will essentially come in here and give updates. But HRC still oversees it. So they put it in ordinance that the chief equity officer will oversee this list of things. So we have been having discussions, but we are in the strategy phase, like Commissioner Stoll used. We are in the strategy phase for CEDAW because we wanna make sure it's done. Basically, what we're looking at is it's data driven. So we need data in order to do a 5-year plan. We can't do a 5-year plan without, there is some data, but now we have to refresh that. That's been years of data, specifically to the different things that we're focusing on. So there will be more updates with that in the next year.
As the ordinance is being written, we envision the Human Rights Commission be more kind of an oversight body.
Yes.
Not to work on it day in and day out, but to be the one that approves the end product.
Yes. Which is why we are hoping to have a task force of more community members, just a second body there, and working on them being. They're not an official board or commission, they're just like almost like a committee. It's kind of like how the Accessibility and Disability Commission started. They started off as a committee and then they became a commission. I think this task force will be more temporary because I think once their work is done, hoping with different research pieces, I think it will be in the city's hands to maintain.
Maybe just, I mean, I know that the Racial Equity and Policing Commission is doing a lot of work and are meeting regularly. There's a Thriving in Place for Gentrification. Youth City is focusing on children, youth advocacy. I guess I'm looking for gaps.
Yeah, and that's where I'm like, yes, the city is doing a lot of these things. We have our refugee person, that's Roxana, our policy advisor. But I don't know, maybe Commissioner Russell, you can give more insight of how these committees kind of came about.
So way back when, we decided to try to get people to take ownership of specific topics, to try to take lead on it and bring it back to the rest of the commission, and that just wasn't working. Basically, it was the chair and vice chair doing everything. So, about a year and a half ago now, maybe 2 years ago, they decided we need to formalize the structure and have standing subcommittees so that people kind of had clear lanes to be working on. And it kind of worked for a little while, but instead of creating subcommittees where you could bring in people who weren't on the commission, it kind of dwindled down to just being a point person, and meetings weren't really held, or meetings were getting postponed or canceled, couldn't schedule them. So it just kind of became another layer of organization that wasn't doing much. So we're at a point now where we have these standing subcommittees, but it's really, I think I'm the only one on the homelessness one right now. Gentrification doesn't have anyone on it. We had a couple of projects, like I mentioned before, with Refugees and New Americans. We put forth the idea that there be a collection, like a database or a page, a landing page on the website that has a collection of resources and materials in the city specifically for refugees and New Americans, or a handbook could go out. I believe Roxana thought that was a great idea,
And she's on it, it's just she's doing welcoming next.
but at that point, is the idea originated with us, and the city took it and ran with it, so we can really have much that we're doing day in, day out, month in, month out. So I think that's like one where you have an 8-point person, who just kind of to follow up with and come back and forth to the Human Rights Commission. Children and youth advocacy, I believe that was, Commissioner Stoll was really passionate about that at one point. Do you want to talk to it, Esther?
Well, I have been, so the subcommittee meetings too, what's really hard is sometimes I feel like that's another conflict, right? It's another meeting. So some meetings have been successful, and I've seen this with the Racial Equity and Policing Commission as well. Like, I think, and this is something that was suggested, we need more substance to the subcommittees. Like, what are we coming with? And what action plan do we have? Otherwise, it's just a meeting and it kind of goes like this. So that's why, I mean, I can see point people more than, because with homelessness, when Andrew Johnson did come in and the question was asked, what can we do to help? It was kind of like, there's not that there's not much, it's just a lot of people are working on it, kind of what you were saying, Commissioner Nguyen, like, where's the gaps? Because there's people already kind of doing this, right? So that's what gets hard. Yes, we can have a point person to follow up, that would be great. But I don't know how, like, I don't know.
I would recommend a point person who could then convene a subcommittee meeting if it were necessary, rather than standing subcommittee meetings
Okay.
with no business.
So more like on as needed, ad hoc subcommittees, okay.
I think like if our goal, and we are gonna be in kind of a little bit of a rebuilding phase, because we're losing some longtime members. If our goal is to be more action oriented and be out in the community, I think we should hesitate to set up more meetings, because then it does stretch people thin and it just, you know, it feels like we're just sitting around talking and we wanna be more action oriented, so. You know, I think if our focus over the next, you know, the first part of the new year is really getting some of these community conversations going, that's where we can put our energy. And then if an issue emerges that seems to be really important for us to address, then we could do kind of an ad hoc type committee if that's the need, if it goes outside the bounds of our regular bi-monthly or quarterly meetings. But I think, you know, I really hesitate for us to have too many meetings. I think that people just feel like, well, I went to the meeting, I did the work.
Yes.
That's the meeting, that's the work, right? And so if we want the work to be actual doing stuff, we should make those meetings, not work sessions.
If there isn't an actual goal that's being achieved, there's not really a reason to have a subcommittee meeting if you're not working on something.
Right.
So a lot of times, like with the homelessness one, it's just me attending the Solid Valley Committee and homelessness meetings, some of their subcommittee meetings, and then coming back here and reporting on it. And there's not really anything to do other than collect information and disseminate it to the rest of you, so.
And I think we have people who, like you're saying, point people who either are involved in some of these issues through their work or through their own interest, and if there's a topic that comes up, it could be brought to the larger community, say, hey, this is happening with refugees or with you for your community or whatever it might be, homelessness, and then, you know, bring it. And if there needs to be additional discussion, we can do it, but
What if they're homeless, queer refugees?
there's a lot of intersection there. We can check 3 bucks. 3
Then it's a super committee.
I appreciate that feedback, I'm hearing you all. So I guess as now, so we have about 15 minutes. I think I have a good starting point. As we work towards the end of your report, I'm looking at some things that will have to be done. I think the resource guide, I'll just touch base with Roxana, will be something that is finished because I think we just have to give her until welcoming week is done. And so she can get through that. And then, of course, our Human Rights Day celebration, that will be a big part of the report, because it's a 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, and we're looking forward to a successful event. So I'll just kind of go into that update. If you all have any other ideas of how the commission can suit your needs, but also the community's needs, and what you want to see being on this commission, because it's a long 4 years, and then if you extend, it's a long 8 years, and I want it to be beneficial for you all and empower you all to support the communities that you all work with and serve. So I love being in the community. I'll be one to tell you, I don't like to have meetings just to have meetings. Like, I'm like, how about we go have a meeting outside, or, you know, so I wanna make it more, I guess, effective for you all. In terms of Human Rights Day, we will be having it on Saturday, December 2nd. I will put a hold on your calendars. I don't think I'll write a reminder. I don't think I have done that yet. It'll be 11 to 2. We are excited. We will have a panel session. And we just confirmed all of our panelists. So we are hoping to get marketing out for that soon, once I get their headshots and bios. And then we will have, what else am I thinking? we will have our awards presentation, which we usually do at our cultural performances. So we will award two nominees or two individuals per award, and then of course two community organizations. So we'll have 3 awards, 2 people for each. And I believe, I haven't checked, but it was supposed to be live on the website, so I will get that link to you all. Because you all can start nominating, you all can start sending the link to people to nominate. We wanna get in as many nominations as we can. And we plan to vote in our November meeting, I believe we agreed on that. That's our last meeting. And that's when we'll be voting on the end of year report and other things.
I think we were discussing doing a ranked choice,
Yes,
because in the past, everybody voted for the one they nominated.
yes. So who's your top choice, and I can make formal ballots, so that is a little bit more formal. I think it was kind of like, how did we do it? Did we say it out loud by show of hands?
No, we didn't,
Oh.
we did it on paper.
Yes, okay.
But it was also, we were very, very rushed because we didn't have enough submissions at one point.
Oh.
It's always been chaotic when you
Yes.
get close to the deadline, because there's so many balls in the air.
Yes, so we will have that, and if it's not on the website, I will make sure with our website manager that it is, because that is the biggest thing I want to push. I'm hoping we get I want many nominations and you all get to vote. And we're hoping to have Mary in attendance. We are checking on her schedule to make sure she is there. And we'll also have the proclamation read for Human Rights Day, or Human Rights Month. They usually do that, so it's a renewal of that, proclamation. So I will send an update with all of that as well. And get a calendar. The Gallivan Center, sorry, yes. It's a free event, free community event. If you haven't been to a Human Rights Day, it's free. So I'm working to, we have 2 donation requests submitted to Zions Bank and Echoes, and we're hoping that we hear back soon. Our grant analyst for the city submitted that about a couple weeks ago now. But I know they're not meeting every month, so we're giving them some time. So just get people excited. I will have some marketing to you all as well, and social media will be going out.
Our meeting Thursday, Laura Jones is going to be at for candidate forum, West Side Coalition is hosting, so we're gonna try to legally say, so how do we get some free advertising from
Oh, yes.
Thursday, so I'll just ask what's the process for trying to get some earned media.
Then I'll let you continue on with the agenda. That I kind of went into Human Rights Day.
Yeah, Human Rights Day, so I think we covered it. If there's any questions about Human Rights Day? Okay, there's gonna be massive info dump coming shortly. Once everything gets narrowed down. Don't let it be overwhelming, just know that they're working hard, moving certain motions, so. We have to start getting nominees and focusing on it shortly. So subcommittees, goals and priorities, I think we kind of just covered all of that. There's not really any major updates. Racial Community Policing Commission didn't have a quorum, so we didn't meet last month. CDOT is still ramping up. Homelessness is I already talked about that. We had a presentation from Thriving Place on gentrification. That's basically where that's at. I think the city is going to be using Thriving Place to then start springing more deep boarding and deep ordinances rather quickly. So somebody who speaks that language might want to keep on top of that. Refugees and New Americans, apparently we're going to be getting an update after that event is taking place this week. So that'll be some work product to show after that. Children and youth advocacy. Esther, do you have anything on children and youth advocacy?
Jason, ask that question one more time.
Children and youth advocacy. Do you have any information for us?
Information on
Children and youth
what?
advocacy.
Sorry. Oh, the children, no, I don't have anything on that. I think last time we had anyone come in was, and I wasn't even there for that meeting, was, well, his name just escaped my mind, but he's with Voices of Utah Children.
Yes.
Yes, Mohiki.
Yeah.
Yes, and I don't know if anyone is the newer commissioners, if you're familiar with him. He is a great advocate for just trying to make sure that children's voices or at least are in part of the policies that are being passed and things that are in the process. He is a big supporter and we had him here last time. But other than that, I haven't had any update as far as that goes.
Can I add something about that? So the city has is doing work with the My Brother's Keeper Foundation. Are you guys familiar with that? Have you guys talked about that?
We have not talked
No,
about
we're
it.
I wanna bring Carlos.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I would say that's a big piece around children advocacy is being part of is My Brother's Keeper, and the fact that the city has hired, has funding and has hired someone to do this work. So it would be great to hear from him.
Yeah.
What is, yeah.
Maybe I can see if he's available for our next meeting.
I'll just briefly, so My Brother's Keeper is an initiative that created by the Obama administration. And it focuses on Black and brown young men and boys. And they've got everything laid out. They've got their own measurements and areas that they focus on. So they've broken it up similar to other things you've probably heard, like early childhood, reading by 3rd grade. Then there's one having to do with discipline in schools, and then one on graduating from high school, and then either graduating, I think it's graduating / career, access to career, and then the last one is second chances. And the My Brother's Keeper group has identified, I think 2 of them to focus on. And so it would be, I know that there have been some focus groups done, there's some research with community groups that are doing the work already. And, so anyway, there's a lot of information.
Stop telling the Twitter.
I didn't do anything.
So while I was reading about it, it reminded me a lot of the Mount Funk Colors of Success. Back in the day, how that was structured. See, it was inside the high schools.
Yeah, that's more, it's similar in terms of like that is an action or a strategy coming from some of these other areas. I think that, again, looking at where the gaps are, there was a recognition that the schools are working to help kids read by 3rd grade. I think second chances was a big one, so around the juvenile justice system, and I can't remember, but mentoring is typically one of the big actions that comes out of the My Brother's Keeper work across the nation. So
Sounds like we'll try to get that presentation from them if we can.
Yeah.
So I spoke with Nate Salazar, Bryce, from the school board and the new superintendent. And I talked about the idea of when those elementary schools get closed, that property is perfectly placed for transitioning to daycare centers. So that came out of our conversation with Esther's Voices for Utah Children, whatever. That was one of the brainstorming things we had, something we might be able to advocate for. So I've spoken with those 3 on that topic so far.
yes.
Anyway, anybody have anything else on the subcommittee's goals and priorities? See anybody? It gives us about 3 minutes to discuss if there's any topics of human rights around the world that anybody wants to bring up. We're gonna be pressing again.
To talk about human rights around the world.
So, earlier this month, Human Rights Watch, I believe, put out a report on between basically the first of the year and June, between March and June, it reported the Saudi Arabian military and government murdering hundreds of Ethiopian migrants and asylum seekers at the Yemeni border. This is what they can document, they have evidence and proof of it. The part that really bothered me the most is that they had groups of people coming across the border from Ethiopia, and they were ordering the men in groups to rape the women. And when they refused, they would execute all of them. And so it was just, it was like taking things from, you know, bad and evil to as evil as you can possibly get. So that was one that really bothered me in the last few weeks. Okay, if nobody has another one, in the last month, we've had another coup in Central Africa. So I think that brings it up to 5 countries that have military overthrow the city government. So democracy is in crisis. I think we discussed last meeting about the border barriers going up along the Rio Grande in Texas. And the Governor Abbott has dug in and going to fight it in courts rather than say, maybe it's not a good idea to put razor wire on buoys in the middle of the water. So it's, I think that the government is pushing for expediting process, but in the meantime, the barriers are still there. Potentially killing people.
Well, from what we're hearing, the expedited process still takes 2 weeks, and to get, people can't get appointments, so they're choosing not to go through ports of entry, even though that's the way the administration's trying to push them through. And especially right now, the numbers of Cuban nation entrance is so high. Agencies that serve these refugees that's a big issue too, is that the numbers that the government wants to bring in terms of refugees is stretching the capacity of the refugee serving agencies so thin, and they're not providing them funds, so it's a real dilemma because we want to resettle more refugees, but it's really stretched to the mid end. We'll see what happens, but we're supposed to, with the new numbers, we have to resettle 10,000 a month across the United States. That's huge number.
Okay, unless there's any final thoughts, we have to get out of the room, I think, in 4 minutes. So, any final thoughts? Anybody online? Not seeing any, then entertain a motion to adjourn. Somebody has to make.
So moved.
All right, so motion to adjourn, or seconds? I'm gonna pretend that's not multiple seconds, so we are adjourned.
I don't think you have to actually second the motion to adjourn, do you?
Does someone second already?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, bye. Have a good night.
Hey, Michelle, check the chat.
Okay.
Limited debate, if you're in a formal debate structure, then you do have to have a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
If you were in informal debate, so at that point, you can just have a motion, recognize the motion.
Well, I have to leave this room, so I will give you a call.
Really well.
Okay, sounds good.
That's why I make sure that we're usually in informal debate, the rules are a lot more flexible.
Okay. Good night.